Hello, board members, mayor. My name is Justin Harvey. I was born and raised in Winter Park, Florida, graduate of Winter Park High School in 2005, and I still do lots of business here in the city. It is one thing to recommend and suggest medical treatments, but I think it is a whole other thing to mandate a medical procedure for employees. Vaccine mandates violate bodily autonomy, and I think that is the bottom line here. And I want to be clear that I'm not anti-vaccine, I'm simply pro-medical choice. The following information is from the CDC, HHS, and Harvard. The vaccine adverse event reporting system has had reported 14,000 deaths so far from the COVID-19 vaccine. Only 1% is reported to this system, according to a Harvard study. And if we do the math there, that's a bit of a scary number. And if even only a portion of these are confirmed, which I understand it's a passive reporting system, that is still thousands of deaths. This highlights risk, and where there is risk, there must be choice for everyone. Another good point to make is that with a mandate, the argument for it is a little bit null and void when the vaccine is not designed to, and it's openly admitted that it does not prevent the spread. It lessens your symptoms, it keeps you from dying, so therefore it protects you and your symptoms. It's nothing to do with me. So if you'd like to wear a mask, if you'd like to take a vaccine, that is great. You are responsible for your health, and I'm responsible for mine. And notice how the government is not in that phrase or statement. First responders and heroes, our first responders with this policy will go from heroes to lab rats. And it is not fair. I'm in contact with many Orange County and Winter Park employees, some of which are in this building, that are very stressed out about these coming mandates. I don't think it is fair or the right time to be stressing people out like this and potentially holding their jobs over their heads or penalizing them for not taking an experimental treatment. Our first responders and police officers deserve medical freedom and not, like I said, penalty or unemployment. We went from 14 days to slow the spread, and almost 2 years later, we're at medical papers, please. I don't think we should be creating a two-tiered society where we segregate people based on their health status, but I can see that's where we're going. Today, I'm here speaking for everyone with jobs, families, soccer practice, and busy lives that can't be here today that are for medical choice. Maybe they've gotten the vaccine, maybe they haven't, but most people agree about that choice. I also want to point you to Israel, where they have the highest vaccination rate in the world. Well, what else do they have? They have the highest infection rate. What is going on here? Today I'm asking you, please do not mandate an experimental drug with no liability. Your employees deserve the right to choose. And just to highlight that last point, there is no liability. So if anyone is hurt or injured by this product, they cannot sue, they cannot take any recourse. That is a major red flag. And who will be responsible if something does happen? It won't be the manufacturers, and I'm afraid it won't be you all. So I thank you for taking the time to listen to me today. I just want to remind you that this is not a partisan issue. Again, it's just medical choice, and I hope you make the right decision. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey.
Hi guys, thank you for your time today. As was said before, my name is Natalie Els, and I am a senior in high school, and I work as a lifeguard for a local city. Today I would like to talk about the vaccine mandate you guys are considering passing for city employees. As a representative of the younger generation, I ask that you guys do not mandate the vaccine. Lord willingly, I have 60 to 70 years left to live. Although this vaccine was FDA approved, it has the most adverse effects, and it has been the quickest vaccine to be approved by the FDA. Also, according to the Florida Department of Health, there's a 99.97% survival rate from ages 16 to 29 in Florida, which is 207 deaths cumulative since the pandemic has started in that age group. And this also includes people with underlying health problems. As a very active young person, I'm asking you do not mandate the vaccine. I would rather take my chances with COVID than a vaccine that has no long-term data.
I have several family members who work for local governments in the area, including the city of Winter Park, so I'm very invested in what you do. I'm urging you to not mandate the vaccine and also not discriminate in any way against unvaccinated employees. You have no medical basis to mandate it or to require repeated testing only for the unvaccinated. Vaccinated people can get COVID and spread it, And a vaccinated person is more likely to disregard minor symptoms and spread it unknowingly. I've seen this happen. An older person with comorbidities is higher risk than a young, healthy person, regardless of vaccination status. And we know now that the vaccine's effectiveness plummets after 6 months or so, and that natural immunity gives way more protection. If you truly want to reduce hospitalizations and expenses, then have temperature checks. Promote early treatments such as monoclonal antibodies, hydroxychloroquine and zinc, and ivermectin, which has been used for decades around the world with millions of people. You're also giving no consideration to the risk you're demanding your employees take on. You have zero long-term data, and the short-term data shows evidence of microclotting, heart inflammation, heavy and irregular bleeding during menstrual cycles, miscarriages, questions about fertility, and the immune system. Each of you decided whether or not to get the vaccination based on weighing the benefits versus the risk for you individually. Your employees should be able to do the same. They're not your children. They're thoughtful and intelligent adults who care deeply about their families, colleagues, and community. If you mandate the vaccine or have a two-tiered system, which is what you're proposing, this means you will fire or punish good employees who've worked for the city for years, employees that you trust right now to run your water treatment plants, take 911 calls, and carry a gun and patrol the streets. Just because an illness is contagious or taxpayers pay for some medical expenses doesn't give you the moral authority to coerce employees this way. Jesus is Lord, and you are not. And he has given the authority to make personal health decisions to the family and not the government and not the employer. Claiming a public crisis doesn't change that this is tyranny. Please don't capitulate to hysteria so some people can have the illusion of safety and you can feel good. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Ells.
Thank you all for allowing us to speak before we get forced against our will into quarantine concentration camps next that are being built all around the United States as we speak right now. Many of us did not see this coming, but now we're here. Vaccine mandates are a direct violation of the Nuremberg Code, and if you enforce them, let me just remind you of the Nuremberg trials and which side of history you'll be on. I can't seem to find anywhere in the Constitution that it states that we can be forced to be vaccinated. Maybe you all could enlighten us. We won't hold our breaths. Every mRNA test animal has died from these experimental poisonous injections within a few months afterwards, mainly from blood clots, which is among the most common side effects along with heart attacks and strokes. But thanks to Trump, he skipped animal trials and decided to experiment on the American people instead with Operation Warp Speed. Trials don't end until 2023, the clinical trials, so we are the experiment now. We have a God-given immune system and a reason for natural immunity, and it is scientifically exponentially more robust than vaccinations. After all, according to the CDC, most of us have a 99.5% chance of surviving COVID naturally anyways. On the flip side, Israel, like Justin said, is one of the most vaccinated countries in the world, and 59% of all new COVID cases are amongst the vaccinated. But I guess the modern-day Jewish star armbands will now simply stay unvaccinated as we're creating a medical apartheid and segregation has returned. And apparently, many of us will be wearing them soon. If the vaccines are so safe, why are vaccine manufacturers exempt from all liability if we get injured or die from them? According to the CDC, if people die within 2 weeks after getting the vaccine, they're still labeling these deaths as unvaccinated deaths. It's an easy way to fudge the numbers. The governor of West Virginia just said recently that new cases of COVID are up 26% in the fully vaccinated. And get this, vaccine-related deaths are up 25%. There have now been more deaths from these COVID vaccines alone than all vaccines combined over the last 20 years. Good news is, if your job is mandating the shots, here's a list of places that don't. The White House, the CDC, the FDA, the WHO, the Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson. Gee, I wonder why. Lest we not forget, according to Kerry Mullis, the inventor of the PCR test, clearly stated that the PCR test was never designed to test for illness and cannot diagnose or do so. He coincidentally died a few months right before the pandemic. Rest in peace, Kerry Mullis. We will get your message out. We know about Operation Paperclip. We know about the Tuskegee experiments on the African American community. We know about Event 201, and we know about Agenda 21. The FDA authorized poison is still a poison. We will not comply. Where there is risk, there must be choice. And when tyranny becomes law, rebellion becomes duty. We won't go down like Australia is now. Be on the right side of history. Thank you.
Thank you.
My husband, Ted Spruill, and I join you, Mayor and Commissioners, this evening as residents of Belle Isle rather than Winter Park. But we felt it was important to be here because we have a lot of family and a lot of friends and colleagues who live in your fine city. We want to share our most heartfelt request that you do not allow vaccine mandates for city employees. While we live in the Lake Conway, Belle Isle area, our son and his wife and our 3 very beloved grandchildren reside here in Winter Park. Our son is a fine, fine man who's given many hours of service and civic involvement to your fine city. So we're here this evening as Americans, as parents, as grandparents, as responsible tax-paying citizens, and as people who frequently patronize all your businesses in Winter Park, to tell you that we believe that our founding fathers must absolutely be rolling in their graves at present. The very idea that any person should be forced to take any injection as a condition of employment is insanity. I'm sorry, but that's the only way to describe it. Our family, friends, neighbors, and colleagues largely believe this is a terrible direction for our country, and it must be stopped. We are intelligent, educated, compassionate people, and we are certainly not anti-science. We're pro-truth, pro-health, and pro-liberty. My husband and myself have had corona. We got through it just fine, thankfully, and we understand about our immune system. I have a form of lymphoma. I'm very high risk, but we know what to do, and there are very basic things that can be done to boost our immunity. So to force a vaccine on anyone, especially, as others have said, one that's unproven, and apparently all indications are at present that we can still contract the virus and still spread the virus even when we're vaccinated. My husband and I believe that we now have immunity, that that's healthy and it's durable. We certainly put no one else at risk. It's completely false that those who decline to take this shot put anyone else's health at risk. That's a false narrative, and we can refer you to many, many very experienced physicians and scientists who will affirm this. So, in closing, I'd like to just offer that, and if I may submit this, my notes, and I apologize, obviously I'm not a professional public speaker, but I'm so concerned about what's going on and about the city and here and, throughout our nation, where so many fine people work and serve, heroic first responders, healthcare professionals. I've met doctors, nurses, firefighters, paramedics, grandmothers, respiratory therapists who are about to lose their jobs, and it's just not right, and it's not just. So one of the very informative discussions regarding actual science that we can refer you to is Dr. Al Johnson and Dr. Peter McCullough. And there are very, very, very many scientists and many physicians who have the facts that counter this narrative. So, ladies and gentlemen, in closing, I just want to say that we have no freedom in our nation unless we maintain sovereignty over our very own bodies. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Pearl?
I'm going to read a list here, starting with measles, chickenpox, rubella, diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis, flu, polio, smallpox, cholera, rabies, typhoid, bubonic plague, tuberculosis, scarlet fever, encephalitis, anthrax, adenovirus, mumps, pneumonia, meningitis, hemorrhagic fever, Lyme disease, rotavirus, papillomavirus, and hepatitis E. All of those have a vaccine. Most of you have had half of them at least. It was government mandated to go to school. People my age had smallpox vaccinations when we were young, and we have the scars to show it. Young people don't have to get smallpox vaccines, and the reason why is we killed it. We all got vaccinated, and the government did that. So I'm a local official. I don't have it in my purview to mandate vaccinations for anyone, but people that aren't getting vaccinated and distributing disinformation are killing our economy. You're killing our families. You're killing our employees. So that's all I have to say.
In 1955, 56, our entire classroom in sixth grade were lined up outside, and they gave each one of us a sugar cube with Salk vaccine on it. This is a little too late for my sister, who got poliomyelitis in 1948, spent times in Warm Springs, Georgia, had intensive therapy to get through it. She came out much better than many children who did have it. But the vaccine, without question, was given to every child. And it was, I'm just blown away at people who say we shouldn't get vaccinated because there is some far-off risk of getting a reaction to it. We have lost almost as many people to coronavirus, for which we have a vaccine, as people that were lost in the 1918 flu, for which there was none. It just blows me away, and you know, I work really hard to understand other people's positions. I am failing to understand people's position on not getting vaccinations.